Hello everyone, Blue Star Saber here once again to do another One Piece chapter review. I apologize for this one, I am a bit late. Quite a lot has happened that it's delayed this review, as well as the fact that the temperature is also not exactly stellar here in the UK. But at last, I'm here to review chapter 1185, if you will. Mindanger owns beeswax. That's the title they put on Viz. So we've got that. This chapter is basically a follow up as we got like more of Brock's backstories of when he was like a poor kid on the street where he unknowingly befriends the young prince who would later become the king and Shuri's father, if you will. And we learn how their sort of friendship debt and how Brock became to owe a life debt to him. We find out more about with this as the flashback continues. Where we find out how Shuri, or aka Gunko, ends up killing her father, if you will. Let's see what that happen in this chapter. Well, we're about to find out as I review this chapter. But before we begin, we've got a cover story, reader request. Of I can't wait for Luffy to eat this. Hancock practices her cooking by Musco, where we see Boa Hancock cooking Luffy's meat, but he's burning them a bit too much. But you can see she's trying to smile and help Luffy. And I apologize for any noise in the background because I am just turning on my fan because it is quite boiling where I am. So I hope it's not too loud. But yeah. Anyway, it's a nice little cover story, if you will. It's just Boa Hancock trying to feed Luffy, as we see kind of a few times the anime teases this. Particularly like one of Hancock's, imaginations of like being Luffy's wife. So yeah, I can definitely see Boa Hancock doing something like this just to try and see if Luffy will better appreciate him. But who knows? Let's see. No, hopefully she's not too bad of a cook. Otherwise, she might put Luffy off. But you know, anyway, it's a nice little reader request, if you will. So yeah. The chapter basically sort of begins with hold on, with with the prince telling Kando that he wants to wants Brooke to be her squire, telling him to have her teach him all the proper manners and etiquettes of a nobleman, if you will, which she of course does. Though we see a little heart thing, suggesting like that she likes him. Let's see with Brock is wearing, let's see, as a young boy here, wearing the sort of Nine shirt, I think. Let's see, you see in the covers. But he talks about how there's pretty ladies in the, let's see, around the palace. Seeing a group of them, pretty lady, skip that one, pretty lady. And he's referring to, I think, one that is a little bit chubby, but there seem to be, let's see, Calenda's admirers, if you will. Which which, as you can see, she ends up getting a bit annoyed with Brock's behavior, as he goes like, "You're the prettiest of all, Kando," with her saying, "Lady Kando, you are my squire." And then we see Brock. It turns out he's always had this trait, asking a woman to, "Can you show me your panties, if you will?" But instead of the "Would you please allow me your panties?" it's a bit more ruder, if you will. Just like, "Hey, just show me your panties." So let's see. And this sort of angers Kandao. So granted, we don't see her bashing on the head here, though I think she does it later on in the chapter. But we end up seeing Kandal, looking after Brock, seeing him like interact with school. He's not wearing the uniform and all that stuff, saying that if he conforms to school culture, he loses his touch with his writing good music. But he's not against wearing the convoy uniform, since that's what he wants to wear. We see him one time sleeping, and Kandal's actually enjoy it. He seems to be smiling a bit. Some of the other guards are saying that he's lucky to be Lady Kandal's to be her squire, if you will, with Brock saying, is she in love with any particular man as they are training? But she talks about how he is far out of his league, if you will. So yeah, they're basically training, if you will. So you have that, but she ends up revealing to Brooke that so he's trained very hard with the swords so that they might be as close to him as possible, revealing that to Brooke that yeah, she does love this man, but of course, since out of the league, she decides to try and just be by his side. With Brooke going, I bet he likes you if you dressed more ladylike. With her saying she doesn't really mind, that she's just happy being by his side. And this is where we get a funny moment of Brock saying, "Are you talking about me?" And he's like, "No," much to which I guess I can't blame Brock for wanting to think that. Let's see. As she goes like, "Lady Candle, do you wear men's underwear too?" As he then says no, and then asks, "Can you show them to me?" Beth goes like, "Brooke, you still haven't learned etiquette. When asking a favor of others, speak to them politely." And then this is where Brooke finally gets the sort of gag phrase, if you will, which is both, let's see, depending on your sense of humor, is either funny or annoying, where he goes like, "Then would you mind showing me your panties, please?" And as a result, Candle beats him up, and she says, "Of course I mind. Forget speaking politely. I need to beat some manners and chivalry into you." And we get more of a flashback montage of saying strength and etiquette are equally important. And he goes like, "Really, I'll do better and try harder." And then we sort of cut to like Brooke and Shuri, if you will, as Brooke is explaining to her, Lady Kano is the light of our admiration, saying that she's the sun that shines in this country. And then ends up telling her about this one time of a ship from the world government that washed up on Espia, and the kingdom was basically in stun because, well, they never met this authority before. And Shuri says, "Wait, are you talking about the celestial dragons?" With saying, "Yeah, you're correct." They threw their weight around, and then revealed that apparently Lady Kando is bedridden for several months after due to fatigue, and you wouldn't believe how gloomy the people were in the kingdom for those months, saying that you shouldn't really laugh, but it was truly the sun itself had set. As he goes on to explain that it was only the precursor to wonderful news, as it's revealed that after this event, let's see, her father, the uncle of Calf Prince, became king at the same time. He married Lady Kandel, and basically, the people basically cheered at this news, as that means Kandel was their queen. And then talks about how you were born. And as he goes on to explain how the kingdom was all tizzy, show us her face. Eek, she's so cute. Thank God she takes after her mother. All that kind of ritzy thing. But Brooke goes like, okay, lost bit track, and says the point is, you see, he loves their parents dearly and knows everything. He would give his life for them. We'll call this one a sacrificial rook, if you will. And well, I don't have like images of the next part. To go back to this image here. She goes like, Papa, Mama. Goes like, Brock, what'd you do if it was me in danger? And he says, the same thing, of course. Give it life and all that. But he says, only because you're like, I'm their daughter. And he goes like, it's because it's you. And she's a little annoyed at first because why did you pause? Be honest. She's a bit pouty, but Brock cheers her up with a lollipop, showing that she has a bit of a sweet tooth. Then we see Brock training her for a bit in swordplay. And at some point we see Brock giving her a piggyback ride, calling out her papa. Let's see. With the king saying, Father, don't be a child. And goes like, I love you too, Father. And it seems the king's a bit sweaty about this. Maybe you're thinking like, no, perhaps it's cuter that you call me Papa. Let's see, but or the mother's smiling at her daughter's antics, if you will. And then we get a bit of a montage, if you will, of Brooke taking care of Princess Shuri and saying, Them saying you want to be independent from your parents. Why not sing a song for a change, princess? As we get a bit of a song of mind your own beeswax, which now the title makes sense to me. As we see Brooke taking care of Lorraine and also checking like a height, if you will. Of her questioning what the lyrics are supposed to mean. As he says, it's a phrase from the It's a phrase from the Kagemati, a land to the west. And we see Brooke is trying to flirt with some woman with their panties, if you will. With Shuri being, let's see, annoyed, angry at Brooke, possibly being jealous, while ignoring another prince trying to woo her. Though she seems to get back at him later, scaring him with a ghost. Which is kind of funny, how Brooke were to be, given what Brooke would become as a skeleton, if you will. And they're singing My Drum Beeswax, and then we get of Brooke being unwell and Shuri trying to nurse him herself, if you will. Let's see, telling a nurse to back off. Let's see, as they hear the lyrics, I ain't some putty dog lured by a candy store. I ain't a kid, and we see that Shuri, at all anymore. As we see Shuri's trying to cook a meal for Brooke, as getting advice from her mother. And Brooke ends up eating it. I'm not sure if it's any good or not, but Shuri's apparently asleep afterwards, so... But yeah. But they're basically having, a fun time. You can see the sort of bond that Brooke and Shuri had with each other, if you will. Even though I think Shuri is still probably crushing on Brooke. But it seems like bad news happens by the time that Shuri turns 15. The music stops playing, if you will. It starts coming bad, if you will. The narration says it lost its music, and the kingdom shrouded in a deep, terrible mist that lasted for half a year. The country's heritage, its treasure instruments, all sort of rotted, curled. Basically, music became unavailable, and, well, it consumed the island. Brooke, you can even see Brooke playing a poor instrument, trying to still sing, saying, lift their hearts with Mufkoff Uhakia. Let's see, even he's struggling. And, well, you say, basically, everyone's coughing, if you will, as the streets are filled with that instead of music. You get poisonous smoke wrecking the lungs, and apparently it took many lives, with the Queen saying the mist will clear, she knows it. But unfortunately, as we about to see here, let's see, unfortunately, as I think Champ Dale tried to assure everyone, let's see, the mist will clear, she knows it. Unfortunately, it seems like it took her own life as one of the horrific events. Let's see, and even though the mist eventually faded, it of course took the Queen's life, and you see everyone mourning. The citizens were, of course, most of all, like Shuri, Brooke, and of course the king, if you will. As the king sort of we get like hold on, let's see, before I should probably have let me just oops, wrong image. We see that the kingdom is no longer able to sustain itself, if you will, and they can no longer afford the heavily tribute to the world government. And as this is a bit of a problem, as we know that countries that don't get paid end up getting in massive trouble, if you will. So we have that, and let's see, we then cut to Brook training Gunko here, if you will, as Brock's able to block the swords, but it's raining at the moment. With Brock commenting on that sometimes it seems like you can see the future princess, but she goes like she wants to be like her mother, and Brock thinking that she does have the potential, but I don't think your father will allow a princess to fight on the front lines of battle. As she talks about how her father seems to have something weighing on her mind these days. With Brock saying he came out and he wanted to belt, but there's nothing they can do. He's saying his only option is to serve the king faithfully, with Shuri thinking, like, I thought you wanted to be a pirate, Brook. Because, like, his ownness comes first. Dreams are a secondary matter. But she talks about, well, okay then, I'll leave with you, still implying he has a crush. With Brock saying, you can't, and she's saying she will. And then we see that the king has saying that there's going to be a war against the world government, and this sort of like shocks like his men, if you will. But as we can see here, got somewhere. Here we go. We see that Brock has like accepted to the fact that, okay, yes, we are going to war, if you will, and saying that this shocks the guards, and then the men ask, at least tell us why, Your Majesty. The king seems to like just say Brook's words for a thing, but then he tells the citizens, the guards, at least they demanded 1,000 slaves from us, saying it's the only way to get out of the heavily tribute this year. Being a slave in the Holy Land might as well be death, which this shocks the guards. And he says the government will come here in 2 months, but he's going to choose not to sacrifice his people and hand them over. And we see here that this has a quite effect on the citizens, if you will, as hold on, let me just find the image. We see Brock walking across the streets as many people ask him, is their country doomed? Saying, given how unaffiliated countries turn into lawless wastelands. Let's see, saying, is it true that they pillage everything we have? And one says he had another country in the West where got wiped off the map. As Brock starts saying, well, I heard a little story once about a sea brimming with violence where the boss don't want to go. Full of samurai warriors and towering giants, basically singing about the samurai of Wano and, of course, the giants of Elbaf, because those are two nations that are able to avoid the world government's control for like 800 years, if you will, due to their landmass as well as the might of their warriors, if you will. So he sings them and all that stuff, as this starts to sort of like cheer up the people a little bit. With Brock singing at the end, saying, because we've got nothing to lose. With the citizens saying, yep, that's true. And we end up getting like a bit of an image, if you will, of like let's see, narration saying the land at the North Harbor, get over here, the 12th platoon. We see that the Navy ships are attacking, fighting the soldiers as war has come to the Brooks homeland, if you will. We've got the guards fighting against the Marines, if you will. They didn't say it would there would be this many of them, but it says don't let them embark. As we see the government flag and the words "Mind your own beeswax" as Brooke is singing and well fighting him off, if you will. Hold on. As we see Brooke here draw upon his sword, if you will, and saying that we're only in the corner of the map, but our name won't be erased, just like that, as he does his iconic slash, saying that this is a place you can't steal from us, slicing him down. Let's see, as someone tells Brock that the enemy's reached the palace and blocked off the stair, as he tells them he'll block off the stair, tell them to block other men to block off the stairs as he goes in. We get a little flashback of like Shuri saying, "But why can't I fight?" With the king saying, "Don't be stupid. As I take you hostage, our arms are tied." As we see some Cypher agents and some Marines thinking, "Please be safe, Princess Shuri," as they go like, let's see, as those Marines go and government dogs basically say, "It's the guard." As Brock thinks about how the place they used to stroll in the gardens is now burning as he slices down the Marines. The dump where he used to be is burning as well. Singing the beeswax song, taking out government agents and Marines left and right. As he hurries the stairs where as he's singing his song, thinking, calling out for like the king and let's see, Princess Shuri, if you will. But he ends up being a little bit too late, if you will. And hold on. As we then, of course, see the moment that we've probably mostly been waiting for to happen in this flashback. We see Gunko killing her father, where we also killing her father, if you will. Both of them appear to be Domino reverse, but we also see a shadowy figure that looks to be basically Marcus Mars of the Five Elders, maybe possibly being possessed by Emu, given the shadowy form, if you will. And then we are sort of also this mysterious Holy Knight figure, if you will. Let's see here as we get a let's see. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Here we go. This let's see, close up of this God Knight figure here with a bit of a cigar, which many people have commented how this guy looks basically like Shuri of the Rain. Brock is just looking on in horror as the king lays dead. Let's see, the princess with cold eyes, if you will. And then the chapter sort of ends with if you let me just get it down. I've sort of reached the limit of my images. Hold on, let me just add one more. Oh yeah, we see this bit here where Shuri looks at Brooke. He's basically just completely horrified of what he sees. We're saying the war's going to be over. Brooke is saying, "Aren't you happy?" As she's licking her lips. Clearly, you can tell that she's being completely possessed now by Emu's dummy reverse, if you will. sort of like ending the chapter this moment with like the king's death, and while despair now lies with the kingdom. So yeah, that is the end of the chapter. So I guess time for like overall thoughts, if you will. Which I will admit, this took a bit longer than I intended, but yeah, this is what I get for putting too many images. But yeah, I do like how we see at the beginning of the chapter of like how when Brooke is being put in Lady Chando's care, the king is basically telling, let's see, her to like, teach Brooke etiquettes and manners, if you will. Of course, it's not going to be an easy task, given how Brooke's a bit of a personality, particularly around pretty ladies, of course, and also trying to flirt with Calendar herself. And it's like, as she's thinking, this is going to be my squire. This is not going to be an easy task. And I do love how she seems to get pretty annoyed with his sort of like panty jokes, if you like, hey, can you see? Let me see your panties, kind of like joke. In many ways, mirroring Nami quite a bit, which is probably not going to help with the allegations that Oda always ends up sort of like let's see, drawing women to look a lot like Nami, if you will. So, but let's see. But nevertheless, it is kind of funny that Lady Chandler, if you will, or later future Queen Chandler, if you will, ends up being like the first Nami or the first woman to scold Brooke for this behavior. So, never mind. But let's see. I do like how we seem to get a little bit of a taste of Brooke's type of woman. It's like any thin woman is like pretty, but anyone that isn't so he doesn't call, so he will skip them, if you will. So yeah, I do like how we see that Brooke, let's see, when he first, this is a trait that he's always had. This is not like something you learned at the palace, so it's something that he's always had. And it seems like no matter how much Lady Chandel tried, they just could not get Brooke to like behave, if you will. So this kind of like let's see, at the very least, the best she could have done is get him to say, let's see, would you please let me see your thing? So at the very least, we know that Brock would have always just asked to see someone's, well, undergarments, if you will. But let's see, Lady Chandler at least taught him that you should, if you're going to ask favors, be nice and polite about it. So he does that, though it doesn't really help him much either, given how like Nami always ends up whacking him because he usually asks her or some other woman around the vicinity, if you will. So we got that. But I do like how Brooke has the sort of the number 9 on his shirt, if you will. Let's see, symbolizing his rank of joining the members of the crew, if you will. I like how even though he's at the school, he doesn't want to wear a uniform because it's like it'll cramp his artistic, ritzy style and like let's see, style of writing music. But I do like how he wants to wear the cool, let's see, convoy uniform. So, which to be fair, let's see. Let's see. Which, to be fair, when you get a chance to wear a cool military outfit, I can't really necessarily blame Brooke. Heck, I still remember how for years in Naruto I complained how Naruto didn't got to wear the leaf vest. So that always kind of annoyed me in sort of like for the Fourth Great Ninja War. So the fact that everyone got to wear a leaf vest, but Naruto, if you will. So, but yeah, but I do like how we see that Kando does sort of warm up to Brock after a while, and that they can have a bit of conversation. I do like how Kando has like this sort of like view and love. It's like it's the as when Brock finally asks her if there's someone that you like, and she reveals that yeah, there is someone that she likes, but of course she knows that since he's a prince, she's just a guard. Technically he should be out of her league and all that stuff, given how these things of royalty act. But I do like her sort of mature response of just wanting to be by his side is enough for her. But of course, she does eventually get to be his wife, if you will. I do like how Brock thinks I get first it's him, but of course it isn't, and all that stuff. Yeah. I do like how Brock goes on to see, even though that's the end of like the young Brock bit of it. See, I do like how it cuts to like Brock trying to explain to Shuri more of like how just valuable their mother is to the whole kingdom. But it's also interesting that we end up learning that a government ship roshed up and that she ended up being ill, which, given the montage of like what this is implying, let's see, she got ill. Let's see, and then the king announced, and then like the prince became the king. He announced he was going to marry Lady Kando, much as everyone is happy about this, and then Shuri's born. This seems to imply that instead of Kando being the celestial dragon, let's see, she ended up, let's see, bearing the child of a celestial dragon. And this might be why, let's see, this is of course a theory. I'm not going to bring in the next chapter, which is unofficially out, but will be officially out later this weekend, if you will. But it's implied that Shuri might be the child of a celestial dragon, which would arguably make sense since she is regarded as Maymar Gunko, if you will. But instead of like Kandao being a celestial dragon that left the kingdom and became a traitor, she might have originally been a forced lover, if you will, which arguably the implications this implies. But then again, Bonnie was revealed to be the child of like a celestial dragon that made Ginny his 8th wife, which some think it might be Shamrock, which yikes, but yeah, so Oda's not above doing this type of backstory, it seems, no matter how awful the awful the implications are. It's a bit more explicit this time and all that stuff. Of course, it could be another theory is that Shanja was a celestial dragon. Then another celestial dragon came to check on her, and she got worried. But and as a result, that is why she was worried and all that stuff. But granted, the timing of when the prince married her and her being born does bring out the possibilities of implications that she is not necessarily the biological father of the king, but yeah. But I do, at the very least, I do like how Brock just talks about how Shuri being born, this wedding happened, all being good things, but even if there might be sort of dark things behind it he doesn't know of yet. So, yeah. I do like how he tries to talk about how everyone was just so happy to have her born and all that stuff. But I do like how Shuri ends up asking Brock, okay, so are you only going to protect me because I'm like the daughter of like, her father and mother? And like Brock, of course, says, no, of course I'd also protect you for being you, because, well, I wouldn't be surprised if he views Shuri as like a niece figure, if you will, so like a little family thing, even though she arguably wants it to be more romantic. But unfortunately, Brock does that, sort of hesitates a bit, which is a bit funny how she gets annoyed. I do like how Brock's like, here, have a lollipop, as he knows this would calm her down. I do like how she ends up starting to call like her parents father and mother, instead of mama and papa, because father says, okay, stop that now, and it's like, you're too young for that kind of thing. Though I can't tell if he's like a bit, okay, I kind of wish you'd still call me mama and papa now, given how you're now saying it, but I could be wrong on that part. But yeah. I do like the sort of montage where you see Brooke and Shuri's lives together, if you will. Brooke taking care of her for, like, say, a bandage aid. Let's see. Brooke keeping the rain out of her, and this is where we actually get to see her princess dress a bit. So it's actually kind of interesting to see her actually wear the princess dress, since all we ever seen her is a military like uniform. So yeah, we got that at the very least. I do like how she still seems to be a bit jealous and annoyed when Brooke ever tries to flirt with other women, and even ignoring other suitors as a result of that. So yeah, that's kind of funny. But yeah, I do like how she tries to take care of him when he's like ill and all that stuff. But of course, we know tragedy's coming. Let's see, a kingdom loses their ability to play music, and they all get sick. Granted, given the events of this chapter, I wouldn't be surprised if the world government created these missing clods to somehow sabotage the kingdom in order to retrieve what they wanted from it, or that put the country in no position that the only choice they have was to go to war against the government. But yeah, I do like how you see people like Brock trying to play music but can't, or at least not as good as he can, and the healthier thing. The Queen trying her best to assure the people, but then of course she ends up losing her own life, which unfortunately means, yes, that means there's another dead mother in One Piece, which some people were hoping that Oda would make this, like Lady Candle, the actual final member of the Guards Knights that we're trying to look for, maybe the man marked by flames, but it doesn't seem like Oda would ever going to do that with Kando. Instead, probably maybe had a more worse fate, if you will. But who knows? Let's see in that regards. But I do like how, despite this, Brook is still training Shuri to be stronger, and there seems to be implication that she seems to be getting some observation hockey, if you will, with her skills. I do like how she talks about how she wants to be like a mother, but Brock points out the king might not allow her to be like a mother in terms of combat. I do like the little talk that they have about revealing that Brock has already told her about his dreams of becoming a pirate, and she even points this out. But I do like how Brock says that he's fine just being in the king's care. But I do like how Shuri's trying to Shuri is trying to tell Brook that she'll be a pirate with him, but he's like, nope, you can't do that. And of course, which I am curious to think if the Elder is perhaps, if this storyline's going to go down of eventually Brook saving Gunko, aka Shuri, if you will, from the world government's control. Will Gonko become a straw hat, or at least a traveling pirate companion for a bit? I'm not entirely sure, but it would be interesting. Though, granted, some might think that Gunko's done too many evil deeds, even though she was basically controlled by the world government, from what it seems, or at least Imu, or at least made her personality a bit more crueler, given how we saw that with King Harold when he became a God's Knight. He eventually became, under the influence of Imu, became a cruel person. So that Loki had no choice but to take down. But I do like how the chapter shows us that how when the kingdom is gone to can no longer afford to pay heavily tribute, the sort of demands the world government will make is or the celestial dragons will make is give us slaves, if you will. Apparently 1,000 of them, and the king is not willing to give up his people for that. And I do like how the king is telling his guards, we need to fight. Of course, Brock, didn't need persuading at first, but the other guards do, and all that stuff. So I do like how they're all motivated. It's okay, any one of us could become slaves, or any citizen. It's this ain't right. We will fight to defend the country. So I do like that. And I do like how, in a sort of bit of a clip where Brock's trying to cheer up the citizens, we end up getting a bit of lore about how there was another country in the West Blue, which there's been a few in the West Blue that seem to be annihilated. Seems West Blue is a bit unlucky in regards to that. I'm wondering if this perhaps maybe Oda having something against West, but yeah, bad jokes aside, we do end up learning how kingdoms who become no longer able to afford the tribute become lawless regions and get destroyed, run by pirates and criminals, if you will. So you can see why many people are willing to pay this tribute, because they don't want to end up the kingdoms that cannot and become lawless states, if you will. So it kind of shows you sort of like the grip the world government has on the world, where it's like you either have to pay us for your protection and be considered civilized, or we won't and you become dirt poor and everyone thinks you're a bunch of Britsy criminals and barbarians, or that kind of thing, sort of like the perfect sort of propaganda, if you will. So I think I like how that's kind of working, but I do like how Brooke points out there are two nations that are able to fend off the world government, the giants from Elbath, and of course the samurai of Wario, of one, I mean. But unfortunately for like Brooke, his kingdom is nowhere near the level of giants or samurai, if you will. So they get eventually, of course, overrun and destroyed, as we see the glimpse of this in this chapter. But yeah, so yeah, I do like how Brooke, of course, tries to sing to cheer up the people, but of course, war does come, and unfortunately, despite the kingdom's numbers, they are still sort of outmatched by, of course, the combined forces of Cyberpol agents and Marines. But I will give credit to Brooke; he does fight them off quite well. I do like how he thinks about, let's see, all the places he used to be with the princess, how his life was like in the garbage, and seeing it all burnt in flames, saying that nothing's different now. Everything is now just burnt flames and scars, if you will. And I do like how he's like, just his main concern is just making sure the king and the princess are alive. But of course, we get this cool montage, this cool panel, which of course with the king being killed by Shuri, both being dummy reversed, this leads a lot of questions. Let's see, of like, why were they both dummy reverse? And also some will probably say plot hole from Oda was like the fact that the king is dead, but let's see, we've seen that if you kill someone dummy reverse, they revert back to normal. I'm not sure if Oda's made an explanation or forgot, but I seem highly likely to forget. But it's probably, we're going to get more content when we probably get Shuri's side of the story, as I think Oda seems to be like keeping it out of reach, but nevertheless, I do think this panel works as like a shock moment of Brock seeing the man he owes everything dead. But the biggest surprise, of course, seeing is that Marcus Mars has came down here as well, and it seems like Imu has possessed him, which makes sense, as Imu seems to prefer possessing the five elders, though Gunko seems to be a bit of an exception. But we also got this new Guards Knight here, which some thought might have been an admiral, but given the Etiatira, it does imply to be a Guards Knight. Many are wondering, is this the man marked by flames? Or is this like another Supreme Commander or something like that? Let's see. But it's like, oh, is this like the one member of the Guards Knights we do not know yet? But granted, given how this is like over 50 years ago, the only way we've seen now in the present day is he was given some form of immortality, more permanent immortality by Imu, as far as we can tell. He only does that with, like, say, the five elders and Gunko for some special reason, as he seems to be very particularly possessive of Gunko. There's many thinking like, okay, this is like Imu with his obsession with blue-haired girls, but it could be something more. We don't know, but yeah. But at the very least, we could find out that the Guards Knight that's here might be actually her biological father or not. We'll have to wait and see, which of course will imply some implications, which will definitely give more fans to want to see this guy get beaten up if he is the man marked by flames. But yeah, overall, I'd say it's a pretty good chapter. A bit fast-paced, I will admit, though I that took forever to like talk about it. Though I did do a few commentary notes, but yeah, I do think it works effective enough to show how Brock became loyal to both the Prince and Lady Chando, if you will, and how Chando tried her best to put manners into Brook, but of course he's still a bit, of course, perverted. But at the very least, he got to say, would you please let me see your, what's-my-calls? Instead of like, yo, just show me your, thing. So there's that. I like this fact we do get a bit of montages of like Brooke and Shuri seeing that bond, at the very least. It'd be nice to have like an extra chapter or two to, let's see, further develop it, but given how far we are into Elbaf, I think it makes sense that it would be done as a montage, and usually Oda's montages work quite effective. But of course, we got another like dead mother situation, which is a shame, and arguably Oda's just beaten this to death at this point. But I do like the king's resolve to like go to war, if you will, to protect his civilians. And I do like how we see what happens to a kingdom that can no longer pay the tribute. What is it they try to defy? Whatever the demands the celestial dragons do, and like their reduction. And then, of course, seeing that there was a God's Knight and Marcus Mars involved with like the murder of the king, if you will. So yeah, no, I think some are questioning whether or not Brooke should remember Marcus Mars, though I don't think Brooke ever encountered Marcus Mars personally on Egghead. But who knows? Maybe in that, let's see, in the future when the world government's forces battle the Straw Hats, Brooke might recognize Marcus Mars, but who knows? It's likely that Marcus Mars may end up being a opponent for someone like Sanji, but who knows? But yeah, overall, I'd say this chapter is probably a 8 out of 10. Good moments of flashbacks for Brooke with like Lady Kando, his bonding with Princess Shuri. And also how the kingdom tried to defend against the world government, despite losing everything. And the king's resolve, only to like end in tragedy. The only thing I can say is the dead mother thing again, and also some of the maybe unfortunate implications surrounding that. But who knows? I mean, overall, it's still a pretty good chapter. So yeah, I think 8 out of 10 is fitting for this. For those who end up listening, I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. I thank you for your time, and I will see you next time when I review the next chapter of One Piece, which hopefully I won't be too delayed. But for now, I am Blue Star Saber signing off. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye for now. See you next time.